In a world where Africans have lost their roots, it has become of vital importance to document our ways. In an effort to reverse the brainwashing of the past, where we were made to believe our ways are demonic, we are pressed to create dignified and respectful platforms to unpack our spiritual ways.
Our stories, and we live in a system where we don't have ways to capture those stories. So events like this are so important when we have people who were in the struggle, so that we can recapture the energy, and so that the future doesn't forget that people actually died for us, that families were broken for us, that so much blood spilled for us to be who we are today. So it is such a great privilege and pleasure to have the elders who were there in the forefront, to tell our stories so that we can document them, and so that the future generations actually have access to these very, very important stories. So tonight, we've got one of the youth activists of June 16, Seth Mazibuko. Yes, it does deserve that. It does deserve that. He was the vice president of the Action Committee. So that's the committee that organized and made sure, this is what we're here to. We're here to unpack how it led up to where it got to, where children had to spill blood for us. Dr. Seth Mazibuko, I'm going to hand you the mic.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm humbled. And this being the month of June, you would imagine what it means to many of us who were there. I know that it might not have the impact that and the reminders that come with it. And I was saying to one of the people that we're walking with, that some of us who even never went for peace and reconciliation, because we could not understand what is this peace and reconciliation commission all about. Not to us, that process of having to go through that, I remember I used to call it Act 1, Scene 2, cut. Mainly because it never addressed the issues of pain.
Yes.
It never addressed the issues of hurt. It never addressed this, that a 16-year-old in this piece of flesh went into solitary confinement for 18 months. He stayed in a cell for 18 months, alone in a cell, having to invite in your cell, in solitary confinement, invite flies to come into your cell and be a friend. Invite ants to come into your cell so that you can have company. And no one understands the deeper side of it. And some of the people who went through that very Peace and Reconciliation Commission, only some people even were in denial, and everyone. FW de Klerk was in the denial. And that was the guy that was actually one time the deputy president of the so-called Government of National Unity. And it hurts because it was only in his deathbed that he then said, "Forgive me." And apartheid was bad. And these are the things that still sit with us. And some of us, when we do speak out on them, we are regarded as being bitter or angry. And no, forget about it. You were saying something in your intro. Lot of our, and it also, that's another hurt, that many of our young people do not even realize the significance and the meaning of what brought them to where they are, if they are anywhere, in any way. And I speak, and some people would regard me as speaking out of anger. Oh yes, I am angry. And because I've not seen any changes, even after we have had so many parties standing for elections and I still see no change. But maybe it is an engagement that I would like to have today to say that how much of hate did we go through? And did that hate help, to bring us to the situation we're in? Maybe I would like to engage at that level, but I leave it to you to lead me with your questions.
Yeah, was it even worth it,
You asked if it was worth it. It's like I always cite the words of one of the leaders of 1976. Those words sit with me because they're part of my, pain when Solomon Mahlangu went down to the gallows. He then looked at his mother, and then he said, "Mama, the tree of liberation shall be nurtured by the blood of the martyrs. Go and tell that to my people." Now, what does this mean? It means here's a young man who is expressing, why did I, as Solomon, get involved? It is because I was ready that the blood that I'm going to shed is going to be really the blood that is going to give the fruit of the tree of liberation. Now, ask, is it worth it? How many young people, as we speak, are enjoying the fruit of the tree? Now, let me confide. How many black, African, for that matter, young people are enjoying the fruit of that tree? How many? Never mind how many, again, black young people who are enjoying the shade of the tree. Count them. We have, instead of giving our children books, we have made them to actually get babies, and we get them paid for getting babies. They get into the bedroom, they are 2. They come out, they are 3, and they get paid for the 3rd baby. Instead, at that same time, you have hundreds of young people who want to get into the university and learn. They are in the street, sleeping in the street. Some of them, I was at the University of the Free State the other day, they were telling me that some of them, if they don't get that NSFAS, they have to go and sell their bodies. And that's the pain. How do I say we have gained something out of it? Some of them even say, we live in our campuses, in our rooms, I have to get a boyfriend to stay with me. Did we do good? And let me tell you, when 1994, I'm happy some people are punished today by votes. I'm happy. I'm so much happy because after 1994, all of us, the so-called leaders, we ran away from our townships. We ran away from our communities. We rushed to be called members of parliament. We rushed for BEE, Black Economy, whatever that was. When BEE could not work, you know what we did? We then called it Triple B, and still could not work. So what am I saying? Where is the black person as we speak today? Where is the African person? Have the African person or black person got the fruit of the tree of liberation? Guess what? It just calls for you. It's a pity because we're walking at night. Just because, we were at Mama Winnie's house. Mama Winnie's house is actually overseeing an informal settlement that is disgusting and called Nomza on her name. But she protected those people to have at least the shelter over their heads. I tell people that the houses that were there, even that were built sometimes by who used to call apartheid, were not getting that easily flooded. I still live in the house that was under apartheid, but give me an RDP house, some of them are no more. The water that we drink, you'll be told that so many millions of people have access to water. What kind of water? Cholera? We're told that so many people have electricity. What kind of electricity? Load shedding. Now, we're told we have roads. They build roads. What kind of roads are we talking about? Potholes. You know, here's a joke, but it's serious, it's not a joke. Sometimes I work with communities outside, Johannesburg. In Mafike, there's a lady who comes from there. Don't tell people about that I've said this. Don't. Be careful. In Mafike, in the Northwest Province, you are told, that if any car or any driver on the road drives the car straight, he's drunk. But if he drives that way, he's sober. Are you there? If you drive straight, you're very drunk. And if you drive that way, you're very sober. Because you are avoiding potholes. You are evading potholes. But that way, and again, that under apartheid, let's talk about this. And tell me that, I'm not saying that there's anything good about apartheid, but I'm just trying to say, let's just see, you asked the question, was it worth it? Yeah. Now my point is, I'm trying to assess if it was. You are in the arts. One of the best studios that used to have was in Bophuthatswana. Then Bophuthatswana under Mangope. One of the best school for catering, food, and all those things was in Bophuthatswana. Go and visit there. I'm an educationist by profession. One of the best schools, actually international school, it was there. Guess what? It is no more. Now, ask me, what was I fighting for? Why did I waste? I was only a 16-year-old boy. Why didn't I go in your Jola? Let me go and find let me go and get myself someone to, and forget, I would have just done it. And here I am, I'm still saying, I'm in Orlando East, and I can assure you that now, I'm still seeing people in shacks. I'm still seeing that a group of young people I was talking to the other day. I said, why do you wake up and stand outside here at 7 a.m. in the morning? They said, Brother Seth, I stay in a shack. I've got to go out in the morning to allow my wife and children to get to wash themselves. And they've got to go out so that I must get in and get to wash myself. And that even used to happen under COVID. That's the pain of a black person. That's the pain of an African person. And I'm not here to, maybe as people will call me, as I said earlier on, I'm too angry. Yes, I am, because I lost the days of my youth for freedom. That is not there. The only thing that I can do now is just to put that cross that I did a week ago or 2 ago, and don't ask me who did I put that cross for. Because none of the people who were there deserved that cross. But I did put it, but don't ask me who. Maybe it was a better devil. But all I'm saying is that if we are not being careful in our country, I think our people have just warned us. I was sharing with a friend. I was saying, all the parties that ran their rallies at Mabida, all three, you know them, I'm not going to name them, went down. The numbers they had in Mabida, all three, check. Go and check. All three. And they filled the stadium. That much I can tell you. They filled Mabida. Can we have attention, please? We're speaking serious issues. Can we call order at the table? Hello? Hello, table?
Okay.
Can we just please pay attention? Serious issues here about our country. All I'm saying is that this is the time in which which our people should really reflect. And I'm happy that we used this evening to try and say, let's reflect. And let us not take this light. Let's just take a very serious reflection, because lives of many people, blood of many young people. Yeah, thanks.
So, I mean, I think maybe if you give us a picture of what was happening, the days leading up to what happened, and the days afterwards, I think it's important for us to kind of know the story so that...
So I'm going to summarize it just to give people and everyone just some picture of what we at June 16 did not just become a June 16. The South African student movement, SAZM, which was part of the Black Consciousness movement. The Black Consciousness movement of the time, thanks to the Steve Bikos, thanks to the Dr. Rampila Mampilas, thanks to Seth Cooper, thanks to Strini Woodleys, thanks to Nkwenkwe Komos, the list goes on. These are the people who, when the liberal politics of the later 60s took, let me start here. 1960, South Africa was totally silenced in as far as black leadership is concerned. That is when the apartheid government banned lot of all black-led organizations, or ANC, PAC, and all of them. They took some of them either into Robben Island, some of them went to exile. So there was a total lull of black leadership at that time. White liberals occupied that space, and they came in the form of your Helen Suzman, who, by the way, is the mother of the DA, grandmother, came from a party called PFP, the Progressive Federal Party. They occupied that space and spoke on our behalf as black people. At universities that time, you had organizations such as the National Union of South African Students, NUSAS, that used to also have very white liberals thinking that now they are talking on our behalf at the tertiary institutions of that time. Then the Steve Bikos in KZN at the time, Kwasu, and then they were in universities, and then they decided that now, black men, you're on your own. And they started saying, black men, you've got to now wake up. They then spoke more of what we call psychological liberation of black people. And it was around that time when something else happened, which was very interesting. In South Africa, we had a visit of Percy Sledge. Do you know Percy Sledge? Do you know Stella Star? And then we had that visit. That's when now the girls in Johannesburg started wearing mini skirts, and we started having afros and all that. But then after that, in America at that time, you had a strong voice of people such as Martin Luther King. You had a very strong voice international of people like Du Bois. We had Kwame Nkrumah speaking of the United States of Africa. So it's all these people who are now starting to say, wake up, black person, and don't ask white people to do things on your behalf. And it was after that that then the Black Consciousness movement started. And that Black Consciousness movement had a high school, university students, which was called SASO, South African Student Organization. And high school students had what was called SAZM, South African Student Movement. Oh, wow. And it was that, then the South African Student Movement, that after some schools were boycotting classes against the medium of, by the way, apartheid introduced Bantu education. This country is one country that I sometimes say, under apartheid, had 18 and a half departments of education just to separate people. And the one for black people was called Bantu education. And then it was that Bantu education that then also imposed the language of the oppressor, that language should be used, okay, to teach a black child. So that the madam should speak well with the maid, and then or the gardener. So we were made the best of, our parents were becoming best of domestic workers. Actually, Verwoerd, who's the architect of apartheid, said something very interesting. He said, teach a black child to see the greener pastures, but not reach them. And this is still applying to. We are so-called greener pastures, but we're not reaching them. So that is the after effect effect of, again, apartheid education. We went on, and students met. I was sharing with many people that next week on Wednesday, the 13th of June, students met for the first time, and students decided that now they are going to elect a body called the Action Committee that was going to lead and plan and lead June 16. And C.S. Mashinini was elected the chair, and this piece of flesh was elected his vice, and Sibongile Mkabela, now then Ntebu, now Mrs. Mkabela, was the secretary. Mefu Murube was the organizer, was the treasurer, and the Swedish Susanna, who was the organizer. And that led them to the day June 16. But the pain of June 16 is that before we even came to June 16, some of us by that time were not even sleeping at our homes. And we were what used to be called hibernation, running away from the police. So we were divorced from our parents at a very tender age of about 15 and 16. And I am saying those, and then after that, it was June 16, a very painful day. And I was sharing with our members when we were at the confrontation corner to say that now, that corner brings a lot of tears because it is where the first bullets and the first killings and where we started counting corpses of children. And again, I was also in conversation with someone, there are people that up to today, children, that are not accounted for to date. And on this very 30th anniversary of democracy, one of them is Mbuisa Makubu, the one who's holding Hector Peterson. He's still not accounted for. And these are some of the things then when you say, really, is this democracy that cannot account for its own people? And and that is what we went through. And some of us then, as I indicated, were detained and then put in prison, and then after that sent to Robben Island. And I laughed because I said, I hardly had a prison uniform that fitted me when I was in Robben Island. And they had to really get me to get a very beautiful suit that was coming from the Mandela section. So they used to say, I'm wearing a Mandela label. So these are some of the things, but the pain. But let me say this, I might have said all the negatives. Let me say my challenge to many of, particularly our young people, is that, guys, we watered this tree of liberation with our blood. Please, don't water it again with your blood. We did that for you. Water it with your sweat. No more blood, but sweat. Young people, we threw stones for you to defend and to get this liberation. Don't use those stones again to destroy, but use those stones to build. And let's build Africa. Let us find those stones and build Africa. Let's build South Africa. And I say, Africa is shaped like a question mark. Have you noticed? And the answers of that Africa is in the dot, which is South Africa.
Let me not be selfish with you. Are there any questions from the audience? I'm sure you would also like to engage and find out, and it's such a privilege to actually have the library here. Okay, so there's a speech of yours, The Great Betrayal.
Inspire me.
I do inspire
Please
you.
don't tell me that you did lots of research. Okay.
You did that speech at Rhodes University, The Great Betrayal.
Yes.
I'd like us to go more into that, especially now with the elections and what's happening, and Parliament and our elders who are not moving from the space and sucking it dry, and they're taking our future away basically in Parliament.
I always call Parliament, and I think it's also in that speech, that unfortunately the so-called democracy that we have or the struggle that we've been through. It is a dream deferred. It is a dream that has not seen, its reality. And we, or our leaders, today, when IEC presented the names of all those who are going to be going down to Parliament, I asked to do what? To do what? Watch the space. We're supposed to have responded in 14 days, and then we're supposed to put on then the new government. You see the first sitting of that Parliament. You'll see how we throw things around. You'll see how we fight. And then you say again, a dream deferred. And I'm so thankful to the people of South Africa that, and again, it goes again back to that speech. It says, and I predicted even that time, that one day people of South Africa will punish those politicians. I said it, and good Lord, I've got such a bad mouth. I said, one day they will punish. They might not use bullets. They will use the ballot. Yeah. And they've used it, for goodness sake. Give South Africa a hand. Really? They've used the ballot to punish the people who actually undermine the pain of the people who suffer to bring us to this point. Where do we go from here? Please ask me there. Gathering like these should not just be we have walked, we have discussed, but gathering like this should, and please, know me, gathering like this should be actually be the process of gathering stones and building our own South Africa. The South Africa that we want, the South Africa that we dream, the South Africa that we fought for. I pray to all my fellow compatriots and everyone who's here. And let me assure you, it's such a pity. Again, I was talking with some young people during elections. I was saying to them, it's such a pity that you guys are locked up in these t-shirts. This t-shirts politics. Our children cannot now think youth development, cannot talk youth development, cannot talk anything. They're locked up in these colors. Yeah? Somebody said the blue because they are blue liars. and then somebody then says the green, gold, and black. They are green, gold, and black because they don't know themselves. and then someone then said they're so red that they're very dangerous. And you go on and on. Please, the invitation I'm giving to South Africans, go out of those t-shirts and take over your land. Those t-shirts are hiding your land. Are hiding your land, those t-shirts. They are giving you 350. Those t-shirts are giving you baby making money. And those t-shirts are making you forget why you actually fought for your freedom. Please use those t-shirts on the floor there when there's wind, or use it to dust your and use them for that. And free from asthma. And sometimes get shut off, free feet cartoon. Those who are in cars, those who are making some money and who want to wash cars and all, use these t-shirts. They're beautiful colors, they'll make your business well. They'll advertise your business. But where am I coming from on a serious note? South Africans have punished politicians this year. Not through the bullet, but through the ballot. South Africans and the people of South Africa. And if our politicians do not realize this time, the anger of our people might take us back into July insurrection. And we nearly lost a lot of lives. And we're just coming out of COVID. I'm praying, and my prayer is, if it's a bit unfair, I was I wanted to listen to what came out in some meeting somewhere after today. And I am one person that would say, please, yes, I think we need the government of national unity. But the question is, who are you uniting with? And whose government or which government do you want? And if we can pronounce on those, then I'll be interested. But fellow South Africans, I think all of us sitting here, I think it's time for us to really reflect and say to ourselves, is this the South Africa we want? Or start the process of actually, talking, building the South Africa we want. The South Africa first negotiations, when do we get back our land? Then we can discuss any other thing after that.
This is an open letter to Stellenbosch for all the blood on your hands, the apologies you never made, and the economy that still is your land. Angali Bali Bastion. Guns blazing, tear gas intoxicating, youngsters bleeding, mothers grieving. It was like God had stopped breathing. In 1976, on 16 June, the youth stood up for the African people. They gave birth to a bloodied freedom. We bowed down, sacrificial lamb, kingdom. This is an open letter to Stellenbosch for all the blood on your hands, the apologies you never made, and the economy that still is your land. For the non-reversal of the Land Act that has kept the black child an orphan since 1913. And yes, we're still hurting. You took us to your schools and made us versions of you, so we definitely know that you can hear us. 400 years, and you never bothered to learn our names. This is an open letter to Stellenbosch for all the blood on your hands. The apologies you never made, and the economy that still is your land. Angali Bali Bastion. This is an open letter to Stellenbosch for all the blood on your hands. The apologies you never made, and the economy that still is your land. Angali Bali Bastion. Here I am, Bastion. You were told by your own poets that the child is not dead. You try to kill my spirit, Bastion, but I'm the future, and here I stand. Here is to all the mothers and fathers I lost when they tried to stand up to your vicious rule. The history you have tried to raise, it still lives vividly in my soul. The broken families and alcohol addiction still burden me in every corner in the non-serviced areas you have created for me. Here I am, Bastion, asking you to remember me, and I need you to know that I have not forgotten. Angali Bali Bastion. This is an open letter to Stellenbosch for all the blood on your hands, the apologies you never made, and the economy that still is your land. Here I am, Bastion. Here I am, Bastion. You were told by your own poets that the child is not dead. You try to kill my spirit, Bastion, but I'm the future, and here I stand. Angali Bali Bastion.